Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into how you can configure Microsoft Azure AD, aka Entra ID, as identity provider for your Snowflake environment, enabling secure, seamless authentication across your enterprise stack. Using Entra ID as your IDP or identity provider centralizes access control, simplifies user management, and strengthens security through single sign-on and modern OAuth workflows. These make this authentication method a perfect fit for organizations that need scalable and compliant identity access solution. During the course of this video, we'll work through three key steps to get everything connected. First, we'll register new OAuth applications in your Microsoft Entra ID environment. We'll then move ahead and create a trust between your Snowflake account and Entra ID environment. And finally, we'll connect to Snowflake from Alteryx Designer, leveraging Azure AD as identity provider. So let's get started and make your data access both secure and efficient. So let's take a look at how this works. I'm going to start with registering two OAuth applications in my Entra ID tenant. One of those applications will be a resource application and will represent an API that I'll be exposing via this OAuth flow. And second application is an OAuth client application, which will essentially have permissions to expose that API, hence the resource application. I know it might sound a little bit confusing, so therefore let's take a look how we can configure this. Well, we're going to start with navigating to the app registrations in Entra ID, and I'll go ahead and create a new registration. I'll call this a Snowflake resource demo application. Right, so this will be my resource application. I only want the accounts within my organizations directly to be able to use this application, so I just keep it as is. Then I click register, and you can see my application has been registered. What I need to do now, I need to navigate to this Manage tab, and here I'll have my Expose an API tab. In here, first of all, I need to create a new application ID. I do this by clicking this Add button here. Good with having this default application ID. And now I need to sign a scope which will represent scope of access to this API. For the scope of access, I'll be using the session role any scope. If you'd like to learn more about the supported scopes by Snowflake, please navigate to the Snowflake documentation. But I'll use the session role any scope, and what the session role any scope does, it basically tells Snowflake that this user is requesting authentication with this scope, and therefore it's up to the Snowflake permission model to define what level of permissions this specific user has. Great. Now that I have this, I'll make admins and users be able to consent to be using this application. So I'll provide a name to the consent display, session rule any scope request, and admin consent description allows users access Snowflake with any role, right? Hence, it is up to Snowflake to assign a role to the user based on the permission model. Great. User consent display name, do not really need this, and I'll make the state of this scope to be enabled. Wonderful. Now that we have enabled this application and the remainder of and the scope, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this application ID. So I will go in my notepad, just note the application ID of my resource application. So this is my resource application, right? And this will be ID. And yeah, I believe now we are all done with this. So what we have done so far, we created a resource application, we created application ID, and we assigned it with respective scope to be exposed by this application. Next, as you remember, we need to create an OAuth client application. To do this, we'll once again navigate to App Registrations in Intro, and we'll create a name of this application. This will be Snowflake Demo client application. I will once again say that I want the organization accounts only within this organization to be able to use this application. And here for the platform, since this application will be an OAuth client that our clients will use in order to authenticate against, I'll need to set up the redirect URI and a few other parameters. I'm going to say that this application shall be a public client or native. I will then need to attribute a redirect URI for our for this OAuth client to be able to perform the OAuth authorization code flow or OAuth service account flow. So I will set the redirect URI to HTTP localhost, and then let's say I would like to use the port 8080, for example. Right, I click register. So my client ID, my OAuth client has been created. One thing I want to do now, I want to copy the ID of this client application. And if I go here, I say client app. Right, and this will be my client ID. Now I need to expose or grant this OAuth client permissions to access the API that we want to expose. And that API, as you remember, is represented by the resource application. To do this, what we need to do, we need to navigate to the API permissions of the client application, click Add Permissions, navigate to APIs my organization uses. And here I can either type in the name of the application, or it could be even better, I'll just go ahead and type in the application ID. Okay, I think this is the demo application that we have just created, right? So I clicked on the application, I select the delegated permissions here, and for the specific scope, as part of this delegated permissions to be exposed by the resource, we need to expose the resource role any scope. You click Add Permission. You see that the permissions have been granted, but the admin consent still need to be given. Since this application is created within our own tenant, and we, being admins, are creating it, I think we are good to go and grant admin permissions to the tenant users to be able to actually use this application. So we have now granted our application, our OAuth client application with required permissions to access the API, which is the resource application here. And the only item we need to perform now is the only other thing we want to do here is we want to navigate to the overview page. Click on this endpoints, and we need to locate a few values here. The value number one we're going to locate is called OAuth authorization endpoint. So we'll just go ahead and copy this value, and this will be our authorization endpoints of our OAuth client application. Then we also need to locate something called a token endpoint of application. The token endpoint can be located in here. So we have OAuth to token endpoint. Okay, this is V1, by the way, and we need to locate the V2. Sorry, I might have copied the wrong. No, I think this is all right. Okay, so this is our token endpoint. Please make sure to copy the V2 endpoint. The V2 token endpoint. So I go ahead and copy the token endpoint right here as well. And the very last thing we need to do, we need to navigate into this OpenID Connect metadata document. Just copy this URI. and save it here separately. Right. Wonderful. With this, we have completed our configuration of our Entra ID environment. We registered a resource application, which once again represents an API that we're exposing, and then we registered a client application that essentially exposes access to the API to the resource application, collected required input. So now that we have completed registering our Entra ID applications, let's move ahead and create trust between our Snowflake environment and Entra ID tenant. To do this, we need to navigate to our Snowflake console and execute the following statement. You can pause the statement or refer to the Entra ID to the Snowflake documentation for details, but this command essentially creates an integration, security integration between your Snowflake instance and Entra AD tenant. A few important inputs that we need to identify and update here in this command include external OAuth audience list. So as you can see, I have conveniently stated what those attributes are. So for example, for OAuth audience list, we need to specify the resource app URI, which we have collected in the previous tab. Do you remember? So this is the ID of the application, the resource application that we created in our Entra tenant. Right, for the external auth issue, we need to compile this based on this prefix, http sts-windows.net, and specify the tenant ID of the Entra ID tenant. Right, to get the Entra ID tenant of our Entra ID tenant ID, we can just simply navigate to either of our applications, and here, quite conveniently, we'll have the directory tenant ID right here. So if I now return back to my Snowflake instance, to my Snowflake console, and I just paste this value in here, this prefix plus the tenant ID essentially serve as the external OAuth feature value of my job token. For the external JW keys URI, we would need to navigate to the metadata URI that we copied in previous tab while collecting all the required inputs from our OAuth client application. So if I just click on this, I create a new tab and I just paste this value in here. I'll be redirected to the this OpenAD configuration endpoint, and in here I have the JW keys endpoint, which is right here. And this endpoint will be used by Snowflake to validate that the tokens issued by Entra ID are actually signed by the tenant we're using. Right, so I just simply copy and paste this file in here. Another important attribute is external OAuth token user mapping claim, which is basically a claim of your job token that identifies unique user ID. Here to the side, I actually got a new job token from my OAuth client application, and I see that I have quite a few claims in here. For my user-to-machine scenario, where I have user authenticating using authorization code for obtaining job token and then basically accessing the Snowflake instance, I'd much rather use the email claim, and I'll attribute this email claim to this user. So what I am going to do then, I'm going to head back to my Snowflake console and update the external OAuth token issue mapping claim from sub to email. You can see that I have the external OAuth Snowflake user mapping attribute set to login name, which is good. What these two claims essentially say is like if the token has been validated, that it's really been issued by this tenant, that the scope of the audience claim maps with the audience claim or matches with the audience claim here inside the token itself, and if other attributes are matching as well, please take the user mentioned or stated in the email claim of the job token, right here, and validate against the login name attribute of Snowflake user, and these two are expected to match. If that's the case, then yes, I mean, this is a real user that exists in Snowflake and should be permitted with access. Great. Now that we have done this, we can just simply run this query, and within a few seconds, we get a message saying that the external OAuth Azure 1 application has been successfully created. The only thing I need to do now, I need to make sure that I have a user in Snowflake that actually has the matching login name to run it ish. To do this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to head to my Snowflake console, navigate to users, and here I have a user that seems to have a similar name. Right, so the display name is this value here. Let me see what the login name of this user is, and the login name of the user is something different. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this email address, and I will set the login name of this user to this very same value that will get propagated in my JOT token. Now that I've done this user already has the required permissions. It just clicks the save user, and the user has been updated. And now we are done with integrating our Entra ID OAuth application with Snowflake. Now that we have completed in creating OAuth client and resource application, our Entra ID tenant, as well as created trust between our Snowflake environment and the Entra ID tenant, it's time for us to test this configuration and attempt to connect our Snowflake data from within Alteryx Designer using Entra ID as authentication. To do this, I'm going to drop a new input tool and click Set Up Connection. Then I'm going to switch to Data Sources tab and locate Snowflake. So now that I selected Snowflake, I'll create a new connection. Right, I'll give this connection a name, so called Snowflake plus Entra Demo. I need to specify the server, and the server is my Snowflake instance URI. So I'll specify the server location. I do not need to specify the database schema. I need to specify the data warehouse to which I'll be attaching the Snowflake session, which will be compute WH. I'll save this connection. Now I need to create a new credential set. From the list of authentication methods, I can either use Azure AD, Azure AD Private, or generic OAuth, but there's a different methods intended for different Azure AD configurations. But for the sake of this video, I'll use generic OAuth. I'll create a new set of credentials and give this credentials a name. Once again, I'll call it Snowflake plus Entra Demo. I'll be prompted to specify the authorization and token endpoints of my OAuth application, and you might remember that we have saved the both authorization and token endpoints while configuring the client application in our Entra environment. So this will be my authorization endpoint, and token endpoint is the same value but with token at the end. I also need to specify the redirect URI, and this redirect URI is the redirect URI that was specified for the client application. And we finally need to specify the client ID, which is once again a value that we copied in previous step. So here's a client ID, and I don't have a client secret, so I'm going to skip this value. And finally, I need to specify the scope in here, and the scope that we have configured for our Entra ID application is, one second, I need to locate the client first, and once again, just want to be 100% sure I'm specifying the right values. So I'm going to navigate to API permissions of our OAuth client. And here I have the permissions, which is great. And this is entire scope value that I'm requesting. This will be my scope. Oops. This should be my scope value. Right. And additionally to this, I want to specify an important one additional value, which is offline access. And this value is essential for us to be able to also to not only get access token from this OAuth client, but also a refresh token that is essential for us to retain your identity following a period of time, be able to get new access tokens so that your users do not have to re-authenticate over and over again. Great, now that we're done with this, we can click create a link, and we might also click test connection. By clicking on test connection, we would get redirected to the Entra authentication page, but this time we have not really we've already been authenticated. So let me go to Entra ID and potentially sign up from my existing session. Yeah, okay. I'll just go ahead and sign up. Okay, yeah. Now if I click connect, you can see that we have successfully authenticated to Snowflake and are able to access our Snowflake data. So I can select one of my existing tables here. Click OK. I might even drop a browse tool here on a canvas and run the workflow. And yeah, and voila. Now we have successfully connected to our Snowflake instance using Entra ID as an identity provider. Great, and this is how you can configure Entra ID as an external identity provider for your Snowflake environment, and then access your Snowflake data using Entra ID of client application. If you have any questions or any suggestions for some of the upcoming videos, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. Otherwise, in my next video, I'm going to cover a very similar setup where we will be using Entra ID and Snowflake and connecting to Snowflake data. But instead of connecting to Snowflake data with user principal, meaning with the user identity, we'll be using a service account or machine identity. That configuration is somewhat different to the one we reviewed today. So stay tuned and subscribe to the channel if that would be of interest to you. And I'll see you in the next video.